21 Pilots have been unknowingly edging us with complicated lore for over a decade. Although some of y'all are way past Chronically Online and probably knew the entire story before Clancy's completion. The alternative duo of multi-instrumentalist songwriter Tyler Joseph and drummer Josh Dunn caught fire right as they signed a record deal with Fueled by Ramen in 2012. Trench remains their magnum opus with its unparalleled world building and soundscapes, but they're coming back from an awkward pop-driven sidestep scaled and icy released during the pandemic in 2021. So I guess the question now is, are we actually back in Trench, or was Clancy just a red herring? Hey neighbor, welcome back to ARTV. My name is John, and it's time to review one of the most highly anticipated albums of the year, Clancy by 21 Pilots. Before we get too deep, take a quick second to press the like button, comment your thoughts on the album, and subscribe with those notifications on so you don't miss out on future videos like that TOP album ranking. Like I've done in the past, I'm not going to spend much time explaining the lore, mainly because I don't really care beyond surface level understanding. We're mainly here to talk about the music, so let's get to it. Clancy took a long time to get here, and if there's one thing you do need to know, Clancy is finally revealed to be Tyler Joseph himself, with the city of Dima in Trench being a representation of the frontman's mental health struggles, which is really oversimplifying it, but I digress. Scaled and Icy was such a weird propaganda-heavy pivot, with its lighthearted nature only occasionally displaying the level of brilliance seen on their best works. Everything feels less direct on Clancy, and by that I don't mean they're taking the easy route. The songs feel interconnected and individualistic in a way that complements repeat listens of the entire album. Bizarre energy storms like a hurricane over Clancy's biggest climaxes, with the in-betweens feeling less like downtime and more like the changing seasons of life, moments in time that we're all forced to deal with head-on as we age. I'm impressed with how smoothly the 13-song tracklist flows, considering how many genres are flirted with pretty heavily, primarily new wave, synth rock, hip-hop, and emo. Trace amounts of alternative rock are knocking at the door on tracks like Navigating and Next Semester, which is probably why I'm so drawn to their energy, but it's contrasted nicely with polished electronics, murky bass, engaging drumming, and some of Tyler's best vocal performances yet. Paul Meany is back on board as co-producer, which is a huge victory considering his immaculate work on Trench. And while I'm at it, shout out Mute Math, Paul's old band. They're incredible and were a huge influence on TOP. Certain ideas get a bit scatterbrained with repeat listens, but these aren't full swing and miss moments that do nothing for me, which is definitely a positive. Tyler's lyrics for Clancy are certainly an improvement, but not always gold. Lavish goes on about dropping your pants for the proctologist, and I don't care what the context is, TMI, my guy. They're definitely cool with popping out of pocket whenever, wherever, yet not to the point they overwork the vibe earthquakes just for the sake of causing a ruckus. It's difficult to say if these songs are up there with their best ever. I mean, some definitely are, but I can see an argument for about half of them being just slightly above average, if not a bit confusing. To me, Clancy simply taps back into what went missing on Scaled, and does its best to not repeat the ground already covered on Trench. And while it's absolutely not a threat to dethrone that king, that doesn't mean that its vitality should go underappreciated. Seeing these two keep one foot on either side of their musical comfort zones is like watching a fun tug-of-war match that you don't have to compete in. Just grab your popcorn, keep an ear out for callbacks, and watch them snap back. I wasn't a fan of Overcompensate when it dropped as the lead single, but now I'm thinking maybe it's grown on me as long as I tune out the lyrics like white noise.
That's why you react acting, gobsmacked, don't hesitate, maybe overcompensate.
A brooding intro gives way to whirring synths and a wild wave of energy that peaks about a minute or so in with raucous drums and bopping bass, but it never quite gets back to that level of intensity and greatness as it's weighed down with Tyler's awkward word choices, like ear holes, and gobsmacked. I can't be the only one who thinks of gobstoppers every time I hear that. Maybe that's just me and my trauma from nearly choking on a gobstopper in 8th grade. True story. Not at all a bad shot in the dark for the starting pistol. The problem is that it's tough to pick a single for an album like this, and maybe it just wasn't the first taste I was expecting.
I prayed those lights would take me home.
I was so blown away by Next Semester. This got the tears flowing in a major way, as Tyler Joseph talks about what sounds like a failed suicide attempt contrasted with a brisk, almost punky instrumental and hooky bass line driving the narrative forward, putting the listener in his shoes, describing the yellow lines on the road, which coincidentally maybe not look a lot like the tape on the trench jackets. It's a really bold, vulnerable move that I applaud, and it's the best 21 Pilots have sounded since Trench. The ukulele outro fades in so organically. It stabs me in the feels every time by simply stripping back the happy facade to a taste test of what he hates less.
Love you better, do you think that now's the time you should let go?
Things get more eclectic on BACKSLIDE, and I'm honestly impressed with the execution and overall direction of the song, grabbing my ear with that buildup of stacked vocals on the chorus and a fascinating video game-ready outro. It irks me that the ending cuts off a bit abruptly after briefly teasing a great synth carrot at the end of the treadmill. It sounded so good that BACKSLIDE is practically begging for an extended remix, which I'm manifesting for all of us now. A recurring theme on Clancy is looking to the past for reconciliation and understanding. Midwest Indigo goes down that path with a pep at its step, vibrating like an old-school flip phone as the narrator attempts to reassure himself in the cold of winter. Juxtaposing happy melodies with more nefarious lyrical undertones is nothing new, but it's also something I'm a total sucker for, and this song checks the box sweetly. Nightcrawlers, we have a new national anthem, and I can't help but feel targeted with the lingering combination of being a natural night owl and insomnia. Routines in the night creeps up on you, illuminating Tyler's mind like the halls of an abandoned building with certain doors you do not want to open. There's a sense of efficient beauty in its simplicity. It's not like we're being hammered over the head with any kind of bombast. It's just a down-to-earth song that sticks the landing pretty nicely. Chills radiate down the spine as Tyler's vocals effortlessly swerve from singing to rapping to more tender, expertly balanced falsetto on the hook. Vignette marks one of Clancy's defining moments, ritualistically marching to the beat of its own drum with squealing synths, zombie allegories, and a chanted friend of a friend backing vocal. The entire package ricochets like a Rube Goldberg machine, with each event triggering a new slice of sonic bliss covered only by the smoldering paint covering Clancy, or rather Tyler, and the sound of vultures kind of like the ones circling the cover of Trench in the background.
Ride it out to the end of the days. I hope that I can satiate the craving.
In a head-to-head battle of the single version versus JENNA'S version, I'm really happy Jenna Joseph won the argument of which one would make the official album. Reducing the amount of layers makes the Craving feel way more intimate and special. It's such a lovely ode to his wife, who Tyler typically dedicates one song to on every album, with this being the most mature and direct, as they've recently welcomed their third child. Sweet sounds of nature line the background, giving that much more credence to the ukulele vibe and Tyler's unapologetically honest voice that cries out almost in guilt over the times where he's felt less than worthy as a husband.
Welcome to the style you haven't seen in a while. It's Lavish.
Lavish is the hardest pill to swallow on all of Clancy, mainly because of how nonsensical and dumb the writing feels. Whispers of the industry turn to a roar as the pair reflect on their quick rise to fame and the luxuries afforded to them, including routine visits to the proctologist.
I see your problem is your proctologist got both hands on your shoulder while you're bottomless.
I can't even begin to try to wrap my head around what that might mean, and I'm not even going to take off my pants to try. Let's go TOP! The energy radiates like a flamethrower for the mind, blazing trails with a frenzy of bass and electric guitar, which would have been nice to hear more of on Clancy, but they came out swinging on Navigating. Unparalleled inertia makes it feel like Goliath powering over David, whipped into shape with a stern guitar whiplash that grooves ridiculously hard in tandem with Tyler. It's tied with Next Semester for my favorite on the album. Instantly captivating and catchy, and seriously fun to listen to, with a somewhat uplifting message that feels a lot less heavy-handed than a few of the weaker tracks coming up.
If I'm gonna snap next, then I gotta snap back.
Persisting long enough to see yourself fail and then climb back out of the trenches. It's something that we don't necessarily talk about enough openly, but it's done really well here and presented with a sense of self-love, acceptance, and grace. Whether it's addiction, family, health issues, the message serves as a reminder that backsliding is inevitable. It's all about getting back on the horse and starting the streak over again, even if it hurts to lose.
Push on through. Push on.
Track 11 Oldies Station is unfortunately really generic, commercial core sounding, almost like someone's about to tell me 800 side effects of a miracle pill. Up until the bridge, that is, when things take a turn for the better. A subtle knocking synth rhythm cues up an emotional bridge, kinda like following behind an asphalt paver as it lays down fresh lanes. Boy.
I don't want anyone, know me or not. See me at my lowest, you don't have to drop.
At the risk of sounding dumb is what I'm tempted to say almost every time I make a pun out loud on this channel. God knows how many sins I've committed at this point, but take me as I am or don't take me at all. Recalling the strong message of neon gravestones, Clancy's version makes it personal by diving into the world of checking in on friends who are struggling mentally, even if they try to push you away, knowing that's the kind of friend you would need if you were experiencing that kind of emotional turbulence. The choppy drum beat chomps away, while quirky synth meditations harken back to the likes of Stressed Out, just with a little bit more guitar in the mix to really make it crystallize.
I would swim the Paladin Straight.
This one's a bit more complicated, so we're gonna have to refer back to our handy-dandy lore guide. Paladin Straight is a body of water on the edge of the fictional continent Trench in this world, so the escape being planned is likely a metaphor used to represent the constant struggle that those battling depression feel when they're trying to outrun the dark clouds of their mind. Paladin Straight is a killer send-off for Clancy, and the entire trail leading back to Blurryface. It's delicate but dedicated, ready to throw it all on the line with a big musical showing that really feels theatrical with its presentation. The fans are gonna go nuts with the Blurryface appearance at the tail end after the tail feathers are done singing, and by that, I mean nothing. Interpret away for yourself. 21 Pilots won me back with Clancy, their 6th album overall, and their first since Scaled and Icy hit like the pandemic-era mess it was. The balance between light and dark is a war that rages on internally, and even if the lore-heavy chapter of Dima, Blurryface, and Trench is truly coming to an end, it's a hell of a way to wrap up a decade of intricately layered lore. I'm upgrading Trench to a perfect score from my initial 4.5, and I'm rating Clancy a strong 4 out of 5, maybe a 4.5 someday, but I'm feeling pretty confident in the 4. Thank you for checking out my review of Clancy. Hit that like button for me, and remember, this was just my opinion. Drop yours in the comments, along with where you'd rank it in their discography. Check out more of my 21 Pilots content here on screen, and I'll see you next semester on ARTV.